Shabbat Shalom, Kal Halal, Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Hashem Kodash, double honors to the elder apostles and elder bishops of GMS, including the elders that came before them that taught us as truth. And Shabbat Shalom and salutations to all the brothers out pushing the word of truth and in sincerity, the hopeful elect tabernacle of David. I'm the brother Yashawan, back with the World War III Daily Update. Shabbat Shalom and salutations to you as well. All right, so we're going to start here because on Tuesday, the Spirit said no. And on Wednesday, the Spirit said no. But today, Thursday, we're going to do Wars and Rumors of War Tuesday on Thursday. So, how we do, we read Matthew 24:6. And ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. Then we go to the different versions. I wanted to do two things today. I wanted to have Wars and Rumors of War Tuesday today. And I want to let Nate expound. When I say Nate, I mean the Canadian prepper. He did this big propagandist push, if you will, on what he believes is going on in the war. So I want that to come out, because if you don't understand what propaganda is basically rumors, right? There's something called a propaganda war, which falls under wars, right? And then you got rumors of war. You got cyber war. That falls under war. You got biological war, right? You got war, the war for the hearts and minds of the people, which goes into propaganda and rumors of war. Anyway, NIV, rumors of war. NLT, threats of wars. We got rumors and threats. You jump down here. You got reports in the Aramaic Bible in plain English. Reports of war. We got rumors, threats, and reports, and news of battles far away. Okay. So, let's get all of those things with Nate. What is this? Is this a threat? That's a threat. This is a rumor. Is this a CGI? Right. What is this? It's breaking news of wars, reports. Okay? This is Wars and Rumors of War Thursday. 15 hours ago, Canadian prepper, that's Nate right there. Let's listen to his spiel. And that's all we're going to do. Okay? See what he has to say about where the war is, where it's going, what this pomp and circumstance meant, right? What this display of a threat, if you will, was. Take it away, Nate.
Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. Welcome back to the Daily Dose of Doom and Gloom. Today on the channel, we need to talk about the hidden messages in the Russian military parade, Putin's declaration of war on the West, missiles marking a major escalation, as well as troops in order to direct those missiles to Ukraine. We have U.S. drones getting very, very close to Russia. We have the Russian media saying that nuclear war is inevitable. We have the nuclear power plant, which has been evacuated. I got an emergency alert on my phone today. I want to talk about that whole system.
Is this not rumors, threats, reports, and news all at the same time? Take it away.
In more detail today, we need to talk about the F-22s that the U.S. just sent to Estonia, just outside the Russian border, likely to face off with Su-35s when World War III kicks off. We have a major escalation in the $1.2 billion weapons package. The media is not connecting the dots on this one, and this one is going to mark probably the biggest escalation since the war began. We have the Ukrainian commander Zaluzny, which has gone AWOL, likely just planning the counteroffensive in secret, but mysteriously didn't even have a virtual presence at the recent NATO conference. which is unusual. Some people speculating that maybe he was taken out in a missile strike, but I'm quite certain that that was not the case. However, we will talk about it. We have Russia withdrawing from another weapons treaty with Europe, marking, you guessed it, a major escalation. We have nuclear detection aircraft over the North Sea doing weird flight patterns. We have peace talks now impossible, according to the UN chief Anthony Guterres. We have Poland renaming a Russian territory, that is Kaliningrad, marking, you guessed it, a major escalation. We have civil war in
performance and efficiency in harmony, engineering meticulously crafted for responsiveness, acceleration, and confidence. The Mazda CX-90 plug-in hybrid.
You guys know how it is when you buy a new Mac. It's super fast at first, and then pretty soon after it starts to slow down. That's probably because you haven't been using Clean My Mac X, which will help clean, speed up, optimize, and protect your computer. I use it on my Mac that is my daily driver, and it is really, really dope. Not only is the first tool just insanely satisfying, SmartScan looks at your system log files and your user cache to see what you don't need anymore to make sure that everything is optimized and can speed up your Mac in just a couple of seconds. And then Space Lens is so cool to see what's taking up the most space. As somebody who is constantly running out of space, I use this all the time, and it's like, oh, that's the 1 terabyte file that is just absolutely draining my SSD. Plus, you get optimization for programs and malware tools to make sure that there's no viruses or bad things on your computer. So to make sure your Mac is running as fast and as smooth and as optimized and as crispy and as clean as possible, check out Clean My Mac X.
Slovakia tried to take a bathroom break.
We have civil war in Pakistan, shit's hitting the fan in Israel and the Gaza Strip, and the border crisis with Mexico is just reaching incredibly dangerous levels. So, where do we start? Well, let's start with the Russian Victory Day parade. This is being misinterpreted by the moronic majority of people.
Is that rumors of war right there? Misinterpreted. What is it?
As per usual, not you guys. You're the independent, self-reliant, preparedness-minded types. So I'm not referring to you, obviously. That's why you come here, for an alternate viewpoint. What people are chalking this up to be, and I'll explain the controversy for you. The Russians demonstrated a paucity of military equipment in today's Victory Day parade, or yesterday's Victory Day parade. And many people have taken that to basically be that they don't have the military equipment available to put on display in these military parades. I'm going to explain why that is nonsense. Number one, military parades are typically put on in the spirit of the principles of the art of war to appear strong when you're weak. So a lot of countries will put on military parades. North Korea comes to mind, when they're weak, in order to show, in order to intimidate, okay? The fact is that if you are very strong, like a country like the United States, for example, you don't see them having a lot of military parades. In fact, I believe I did a video several years ago that said that when the United States starts having military parades, you know the empire is collapsing, because it's a way of kind of puffing up your feathers, so to speak. However, right now, as the Russians are fighting a conflict, many people are chalking up the lack of military equipment as indicating that they somehow lack the equipment to put on display at all, which is complete nonsense. We showed videos a couple days ago of the Russian defense minister, Sergei Shoigu, inspecting hundreds of new Russian tanks. They have tons of equipment, thousands of vehicles that they easily could field in this military parade. But it's quite symbolic that they chose not to do so. And that's quite telling, because if they were weak, this is something they would want to do. They would want to put on a big demonstration, in spite of any potential security risks that might accompany it. They would have wanted to put on a very big show if they were concerned about their image. The fact that they were not, and they only fielded one tank, one lone tank that's going to be coming up here in this procession, should be quite concerning to people, because what that means is that they are fully committed to the pragmatic and strategic aspects of this war, as Putin even referred to it this time around. And I imagine that if they did field 500 tanks. If we flip the script and when we follow that line of thinking, that rationale that, out of sight, out of mind, if it's there, then that means they have it. Would people be freaking out if the Russians had this grand military parade?
Does this make Nate a Russian propagandist? Right? Your boy Gonzalo Lira is sitting and maybe rotting in a Ukrainian prison right now because he was a Russian propagandist living in the Ukraine. So what are the laws in Canada as far as, I guess he's on the right side. Well, no, he's on the wrong side. Right? Will they grab him up? Right? Because he's clearly on the side of the Russians. Right? And not that he's on any side. If you're telling the truth, which I believe Gonzalo Lira was telling the truth, you can't tell the truth, right? And be in the wrong country. And that's where this thing is going. He goes on and he goes on and he's describing what this pomp and circumstance is about from his perspective, right? And I largely agree with him, because the truth is always going to be the truth whether you get arrested for it or not. But everybody's entitled to their opinion. So I'm going to let a little more of this play and then I'm going to bring it to an end.
People be really worried that, because, of course, some people have not transcended what they call in psychology the object permanence developmental phase. It's a cognitive phase that infants go through when basically if you play a game of peekaboo with an infant, the infant thinks that I've disappeared when my hands are in front of me, and it thinks I've reappeared simply by virtue of being in visual range. Just because something is out of sight doesn't mean it ceases to exist. But unfortunately, in the moronic majority who is so impressionable and only led by their senses and can't seem to think for themselves, they actually believe that just because the Russians only fielded this one tank that you're seeing behind me here, that means anything but that the Russians...
It's an old Soviet era tank as well. So what is that? Shall we go more? This guy and his commercials. This is just all about the dollar or whatever they use in Canada. A little more.
That the Russians are taking the war more seriously and they're less concerned with PR. Understand that in 1941, when the Germans were beating on the door of Moscow, getting ready to basically take over the country, the Russians had already cleared out all their government offices. They were getting ready to basically concede Moscow. Stalin decided to have a military parade. This had the effect of boosting morale. Against the advice of his advisors, he decided to go through with this military parade, which galvanized people to defend Moscow and actually was one of the factors that turned the tide of the war. So you're talking about a situation where Russia has the means to put on a military parade but has chosen not to because, number one, they're not concerned about boosting morale, signifying that the population is ready to go the distance no matter what. You're talking...
That's the war for the hearts and minds of the people.
About a population who in World War II lost 25 million civilians and military personnel in this conflict. I think that was like 1 in 5, possibly 1 in 4 of their population, maybe even more. So we cannot comprehend that level of sacrifice, okay? We cannot comprehend the level that the Russians are likely willing to suffer to ensure that their national sovereignty, as they view it, is not infringed. We have no frame of reference to comprehend that. They've barely scratched the surface of what they're likely willing to sacrifice in this conflict, with even if you take the worst case estimates of a couple 100,000 guys, doesn't scratch the surface of what they are able to bring to bear in terms of manpower and reserves, which is around 25 million people.
They did only brandish one tank, but they damn sure brandished them nukes, though. They didn't leave that out of the equation. The tanks are on the battlefield, right? And what they're showing is showing you, hey, fuck the tanks, nigga. Here's round 2 is going to be about these ICBMs. So.
Bodied males that are able to fight in a conflict. So this is a big nothing burger in my personal experience. This is just another indication that people on the internet, these lemmings, are going to hurt us off this cliff into World War III. And unfortunately, because human beings are a herd species, we have herd behavior, herd mentality. If you try to go against the herd, what happens? Well,
You heard?
we've seen it happen all around the world when stampedes happen. And if you're not going with the flow of that stampede, you're going to get trampled. Unfortunately, dissenters, anybody who deviates from the primary narrative that's being pushed out on either side, is going to get trampled. And these are the people who are going to take us to the brink of nuclear war. And it's coming, and we're going to reach a point where we're going to be solely relying on whatever back channels exist between the Russians and the Americans to prevent this from potentially escalating out of control, because the fanboys, the cheerleaders on the sidelines, are so blind, deaf, and dumb that they can't see how this is going to end badly for all of us. Like,
Are these nukes? They didn't have one of these vehicles out, right? These are mobile nukes. The grip of them.
people who are starry-eyed and are looking for a Ukrainian victory and for the Ukrainians to take back Crimea, that's great if you're a patriotic Ukrainian. However, the rest of us have to worry about the global implications of what Russia will perceive that to be, and that's a existential threat to their national sovereignty. So that means that as soon as that happens, if and when it happens, that the risk of nuclear war has increased. In fact, a four-star general of the American military recently said, and as you notice here, just as a sidebar, they still put the nuclear weapons in. So they only had one tank, but they kept the nukes in. That's a little hidden message there as well. But the four-star general said that the Americans are actually concerned about the Ukrainians winning the war too fast.
One tank and putting the nukes in, what is that? That falls under... Oh, yeah. It falls under threats of wars. Hey, got them nukes, fool. The war is going on, right? You will hear of wars. Yeah, they're using the tanks right now. What is the threat? It's going to escalate. We'll go ahead and end it right there. Is it World War III yet? Maybe not yet. But it's coming. How do you know? Revelation 11 and 14, the second woe has passed. That's World War II. Behold, the third woe, which is World War III, is coming shortly. All right, so with that, there's your World War III, Matthew 24 and 6, Wars and Rumors of War, Tuesday on a Thursday. We hope that the elect were edified, you brothers and few sisters. With that, we're going to say Shabbat Shalom.